So let's get going here with Jeff Gabriel, our presenter for today, who's going to talk about how he simulates the operation of the Erie Railroad of the 1930s in a virtual way. I'm kind of curious to see what this is like, but we'll turn it over to Jeff and let him get started.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a second, we'll get screen sharing started here. Okay, guys and Paul, is there any way to enable participant screen sharing? Because I can't share. Jim was doing this stuff, wasn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately, Jim noted to me in chat that he had to go into work today, so you guys are on your own.
Right,
Okay,
I got
so-
that too, but we have to enable
Yeah, I am looking at it right now. So give me a minute here. I'm trying to do this.
Thank you, Jim.
Just to step into the gap here for a moment, in scanning over my screen that I can see a lot of faces on, I notice that almost everybody is muted themselves. And that may have an impact on whether you can participate. Lower left-hand corner, mute, undo it.
Well, no, Jeff's issue is over being able to share content from his computer so that we can see it. Right now, that's set up so that nobody can do that. So Jim Dent is trying to fix that.
The person who starts the meeting has a security button, and that's where they enable sharing.
If you're not asking questions, we ask that you do stay on mute just to keep the background noise down. And just click unmute yourself if you have a question to ask.
Okay, Jeff, try now.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm good now.
Okay, good.
Okay, I'm going to start talking, guys, and doing this. The first part of this is a PowerPoint presentation. Operating the Erie or Lackawanna Railroad of the 1930s virtually. And you can enjoy doing this at home. And actually, I have what I call historic territories and try to present what was existed in the 20s, 30s, or 40s. And of course, there's Erie and there's Lackawanna, and I do them and many other railroads separately. And of course, there isn't any Erie Lackawanna because I'm simulating an era before the merger. Okay, presentation by me. We're thinking about the past. The glory days of the Erie and the Lackawanna were perhaps the 20s, 30s, and 40s. All main lines and branches were in place, many with multiple tracks. There was significant passenger service on almost all lines. Large numbers of towns had staffed passenger stations and freight stations for that matter. Railroad carried the majority share of passenger and freight traffic, mail and express. There were a large number of interlocking towers in service, and there were junctions everywhere with other railroads, with many crossings at grade. Here are some of the ways that we all enjoy remembering and recreating that railroad past. Model railroading, books, photos, movies, magazines, historical society meetings and programs like this one, riding regular train service and fan trips, going out and exploring rail lines, and virtual operation through personal computers and available programs. I guess we all don't do virtual operation as much as some of the other things, but the point of this presentation is that you can. And I threw in a couple of pictures from the era just to get our minds in that direction. How does virtual operation work? So you need a laptop or desktop computer. You need a computer program installed on it, written to let you operate sections of railroads on the computer. And you have to have one or more specific sections or territories of railroads which you want to operate in files on the computer. These have trackage stations and yards, multiple trains to operate, the timetable they'll follow, sometimes scenery. Emphasis can be on present day or historic railroads and their operation. I emphasize historic, others present day. Some programs offer operations from the dispatcher's point of view, operating multiple trains. Other software functions as a simulator, letting you be the engineer of just one train at a time, viewing the railroad from the engine. Which virtual program did I choose? I chose one called Train Dispatcher 3.5, developed by Signal Computer Consultants based on my interests and preferences. It's been around for about 20 years or so. Operating multiple trains over large territories, passenger and freight, is one of my preferences. Acting as dispatcher and tower operator in effect for all locations. Having passenger trains on almost all lines with timetables, station stops, and a variety of freights. The ability to use the territories created by others or to build my own territories, historic or current, specifically specifying all the trains, setting stops and timetables through a companion program from that same developer. I have used these programs for about 15 years myself. They work well on the latest versions of Windows 10 and 7, as well as most prior versions, NT and so on. While this program works very well on Windows laptops and desktops, unfortunately, it doesn't work on iPads or mobile devices. It may work on Apple computers using emulation software. Territories that I have designed and built, actually about 40 in all. Most are portions of railroads. Whole railroads are impossible for large for screens and for file sizes. My territories are historic, representing what the railroad was like. Out of the 40, here are the 5 covering the Erie and Lackawanna. Erie, New York Division, Jersey City to Port Jervis and Greenwood Lake, etc. Erie, New York Division branches, northern Piermont, New Jersey, New York, eastern portion of the Susquehanna. The third one, Erie West, Main Line, Port Jervis to Chicago, the entire Buffalo Division, Buffalo and Southwestern, River Line, Youngstown, Bypass, Leavittsburg to Cleveland, etc. This is the one that we'll demo and operate in just a few minutes. Lackawanna East, Hoboken to Denville, via Morrison, Essex, and Boonton Line, New Jersey Cutoff, Rockaway Loop, Main Line west to Scranton. In other words, the suburban territory plus. And lastly, of the 5, Lackawanna West, Scranton to Buffalo, the entire Bloomsburg branch, also Binghamton to Syracuse and to Utica. You can try this yourself. In order to let people try this easily, I'm offering to give members all 5 of these territories, along with instructions for obtaining and installing the underlying software program and uploading these territories. I will email this to you upon request. This is my email address if you want to write it down. I put it in 2 other places in case you don't have a pen right now or you decide later you want to do it. I put it in the meeting invitation, you'll find it, that you just clicked on. And also in the chat window at the very top is my email address. So if you want to get it later, feel free. Okay. So did I make any Erie Lackawanna territories? No, they're separate. As far as questions are concerned, I think that a lot of the questions that might have been raised already through this PowerPoint presentation or will be raised will be answered in the demonstration afterwards. So I would suggest you hold the questions or type them into the chat, but we'll get to them kind of at the end altogether. Okay, what's next? First, a brief introduction to help you understand the program and the territory. Second, a tour of the territory. Third, a brief operation. And lastly, answers to your questions. And another picture, this is Susquehanna Division Headquarters and so forth. How does Train Dispatcher 3.5 work? You launch it from an icon on your desktop. You choose the territory you want to operate, since you can operate dozens, really. Choose a starting day, the week, and time. There are trains operating 24 hours a day. You don't have to operate 24 hours a day. You can stop and resume or quit and exit and restart anytime you want. Schedule usually varies on different days of the week. For example, some freights might run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, others Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Commuter trains might not run on weekends, but fan trips might. You choose a clock speed, so you're not running 1-to-1. You're running fast, like in model railroading. Many model railroads that have timetable operation also have a fast clock. 8-to-1 means 8 for each 1 minute of real time, 8 minutes of the program will elapse. We'll use a speed of 8 or 10 for the demo. Fast enough to keep it interesting, but not so fast that the trains pulled up and clog the thing. Clock can be changed faster or slower at any time during the operation. Then you would press start. How does it work? Continued. A territory resembles a large CTC board or TCS in a dispatcher's office, the old style GRS or Union Switch and Signal, whatever it was. You'll notice some trains already are on the territory when you start anytime. You basically don't control the trains like having a throttle and that type of thing and a brake. They simply proceed whenever you clear the signals along the route and will continue until they encounter a stop signal or a signal not cleared, or they stop at station stops that are designated. You must line the route first, i.e. throw the switches before clearing the signals. When you do clear a signal and a train passes it, goes to red like on any railroad, doesn't automatically clear normally. However, you can fleet the signals where appropriate. Fleeting means setting it so after the train gets another block ahead down the line, the signal would go to green or maybe yellow and then green in the next time. And that's done on this type of operation, typically on double track territory where there's right-hand running. Signals are not usually fleeted on single track because you don't have a parade of trains going in the same direction. There are many entrances and exits around a territory with designations, 2 letters, 2 numbers, whatever. Each one can function both as an entrance and an exit. Trains appear as engine symbols, generally diesels. The train's name or number is above the signal, above the symbol. If the train's name or number is blue, it shows it's moving. If the train's number is red, it shows it's stopped for some reason. Using this program, you operate many trains on main and branch lines from where they enter all the way to their designated exit. Your job is to be the dispatcher or tower operator. Some trains may exit multiple times at different points and re-enter. Freight trains generally do this to work in intermediate yards or serve industries. This is not, however, a freight switching program. We don't have switch lists or couple and uncouple single cars. However, switching is understood to take place at work areas where a train will briefly dwell. In a few cases, two trains couple and merge, and in some cases, a train splits. Sorry. Where I am there. Okay, to determine where to route a train, you hover your mouse over the train, your pointer. At the top of the screen, it will display an area that shows where to route the train to and the next work area the train will serve. So you route it to that area. We'll show that much better in the demo. To determine what trains are stopped and need to start moving, either search around, note any trains that have a red number, which means they're at stop, and start them by routing them to their destination and clearing the signals. Or there's a drop down at the top called trains that lists the trains that are stopped. Again, the demo will show this. Okay, the program provides a very good operating manual, which you can read or print. In addition, if while operating the territory, you try to do something not possible, a message will pop up telling you what you can do. So it's user-friendly in that sense. Another tower, which we'll see in our demo, BK Buchanan. Okay, here's a map of the Erie as it was, and the main line, of course, and branches. We're simulating in the territory I picked to demo, the main line from Chicago on the west to Port Jervis on the east. In other words, it's everything except the New York division. The New York division is so busy, obviously, it needs its own territory. So we won't be doing that today, but it's available to you. In this Western territory, it's big and very varied. It includes the whole Buffalo and Southwestern divisions. It also includes the Youngstown bypass, Leavittsburg to Cleveland, Maine, the Columbus and Erie, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, a little about the territory now. This is a large, ambitious territory, enjoyable to operate. Lots of varieties. No lines are abandoned, they're all there. Like model railroads, space and time limitation require, I would say, a great deal of author's license and selective compression. But all major stations and junctions and some more minor ones are depicted. Obviously, the ones that are meaningful to me and maybe to a lot of you are depicted. Most actual Erie passenger trains of the era do operate here. Times are slightly adjusted. A representative selection of freight trains is also operated. And there's some trains of other railroads on this territory, primarily Pennsylvania, New York Central, Baltimore and Ohio, Chesapeake and Ohio, and Lehigh Valley. They generally operate on paired trackage rights, or sometimes on detours on the Erie, or just crossing at a junction with the Erie. All trains are represented by a diesel symbol, even though they're steam. The reason for that is because the diesel colors and paint schemes allow the identification of the Erie versus a New York Central train versus a Pennsylvania train and so forth. It's obvious. The steam engines in a little teeny symbol would look alike. Each railroad would look alike. Also, the Erie passenger versus the Erie freight trains are readily identifiable with the symbols I used. Most passenger platforms are at stations where passenger trains make regular timed stops with a dwell time to discharge and pick up. A few passenger platforms are for flag stops marked F, and some are stations where trains no longer stop marked N. At a few stub end locations, I cheated a little, and the trains on my territory continue in the same direction to a passenger yard that doesn't really exist there in reality. In reality, the trains would make a reverse move to the yard, but I wanted to operate more trains and do a little bit of less final passenger switching. So I did it that way. I've researched and portrayed a great deal of Erie trackage and operating history. Here are a few examples. You'll see more. Erie used trackage rights on the Braceville to Phalanx line, that's on the Cleveland line, so they could make a forward move from Kent to Cleveland without reversing direction at Leavittsburg, which didn't have a three-way Y. And they used these rights on the New York Central until 1962. Erie used the Lehigh Valley Station at Main and Scott Streets in Buffalo from 1935 to 51, when passenger service ended in Buffalo. So our trains are going to go into the Lehigh Valley Station. The Dayton branch freights had to back out of Marion Yard into the Marion passenger station and really out a ways further in order to then, after the switches were lined, cross over and diverge onto the Dayton line forward. And of course, they made the reverse move when they came back from Dayton. Erie heavy westbound freights used trackage rights over the Bessemer and Lake Erie. This is a fairly obscure point. From BK Buchanan, which is west of Meadville, to Greenville on the Bessemer and Lake Erie, and then back onto the Erie at the interchange switch at XN Shenango crossing. You'll see that. Okay, a last slide about this. I'm interested in interlocking towers, so I have identified them by red, by name and call number. I don't have all of them, but I have a large number of towers still operating. Freights are named with letters or numbers, like CX90 is Croxton to Chicago. Passenger trains are numbered with numbers in most cases, like 27, the Mountain Express. Some long-distance passenger trains are split into two. In other words, the Erie Limited, say, was train 1. I have them as 1E for from Port Jervis to Kent and 1W from Kent to Chicago. There's a reason for that that has to do with how they display the time, not terribly important right now. All of the trains appear as small diesels, although they're steam trains. You can identify the type of trains as follows. Green or Erie long distance passenger, one of the colors in the Erie passenger scheme. Blue and white for suburban passenger, black for Erie freight, maroon and gray Lackawanna train, red Lehigh Valley, Tuscan red Pennsylvania scheme for Pennsylvania, yellows Chesapeake and Ohio, gray and white New York Central scheme, blue and white for B&O, and then I have a couple of military specials. This is what the territory looks like. You'll see it much better in a minute. That's the upper left corner. Final slide of our PowerPoint presentation. We'll next switch to a view of the territory to tour, and we'll operate the territory for a portion of Monday morning starting at 5 a.m. Okay, I am now going to switch to this. Okay, you should see that territory now in front of you. And again, this goes from Port Jervis to Chicago. And actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a few minutes to show you the territory before we operate. I'm going to start at the Port Jervis end. This is Port Jervis. Okay, now my pointer isn't very large, but I'm going to move it around a little so you see it down here at the bottom. And we come in from Jersey City into Port Jervis, and of course, we don't show that part. And we also don't show the west end of the yard. But then we have the freight yard coming into the passenger trackage at Sparrowbush and going across the Mill Rift Bridge. I'm going to concentrate on showing you the major junctions and not every station. So here's Lackawaxen and BQ Tower. You can see down here. Okay. Next place I showed here was Deposit. I'm going to show you now. And of course, this is where some of the passenger trains on the Delaware Division terminated or originated, Deposit, New York. One of the features I wanted to show you here is if you're navigating around this territory or any of these territories, and you say, well, where does this go? It goes off the end here. Where does this go? You just click on it. It'll bring you to where it goes. That's a very useful feature. So now it's bringing you over here to Gulf Summit and Starukka Viaduct. And then the next place here is Susquehanna. Okay, so you have the Susquehanna yard and shops and the double track main line and station and so forth. Okay, the next place of significance is going to be Binghamton. And there's the yards, there's crossing of the Lackawanna's Syracuse and Utica division over here. Now, next place I'm going to show you Owego over here. This is, of course, fairly big deal on the Erie, crossing of the Lackawanna's Ithaca branch, connection with the Lehigh Valley's Auburn division, and so on. Next, I'm going to show you Elmira. Here's Elmira with a yard and 5th Street Tower and so forth at the West End McCann Boulevard. And two important junctions, HO, Horseheads Junction with the Pennsylvania line to Sodas Point, and the Erie went up to Watkins Glen there. And then Corning and Painted Post Junction with the Rochester division. Next, Hornell. Hornell, of course, has yards and the locomotive shops. And then, of course, at the west end at Cass Street, we split between the Buffalo division going kind of straight ahead and the old main line, the single track line via Wellsville and Tip Top and so forth going off this way. Okay, and if we go, where does that go? Brings us over to River Junction on the Buffalo line. And we go on up to the Buffalo line as a single track, but there's a Y connection so that the Buffalo to Salamanca trains can proceed in a forward direction here when they run that way. Then if you go down here, the single track main line with passing sidings comes in, and they come together again at CB Cuba Junction. I'm exaggerating this movement to make sure that you can all see the pointer. Okay, going on, the next place of significance, Salamanca, and of course there's Carrollton and the junction with the Bradford division, Salamanca Yard here, and the junction at the west end with the old original main line to Dunkirk. The next place of significance is Jamestown over here, and Falconer, Waterboro. This is the junction with the Buffalo and Southwestern division. And of course, it has its own yard and connection to the electric lines. The next place, let me just show you, we have the, from Niobe Junction to Columbus Junction, the main line and the Columbus and Erie running parallel to each other. Corey and then Meadville with its yard, that Buchanan Tower we talked about a couple times already, and the Meadville branch going off. This is what those freights will use, westbound heavy freights. Next thing is Pymatuning, where the Cleveland bypass goes off. Actually, yeah, the Youngstown bypass, I should have said, goes off as a single track line. and the double track goes via Youngstown. Now we'll go to Youngstown. We have Himrod Junction at the east end. We have the passenger station. We have the double track up as far as Leavittsburg. We have the Gauntlet trackage in Warren, and you shouldn't or can't pass two trains here. They'll scrape each other. Okay, SN Leavittsburg Tower, the Youngstown bypass comes in and the Cleveland main line goes off. This is that New York Central line from Braceville to Phalanx. You see where I am here. That I was talking about before, that the the Kent to Cleveland freights use. Here's Kent, and we have the yards, of course. We have Akron, and I'll just show you briefly. Cleveland's up here, and we have a line diverging to the passenger station, which the Erie had their own before they went into Cleveland Union Terminal later on, I think in '49. And we have the line to the ore docks here. Okay, continuing west on the main line, and we're going to come to Mansfield, crossing of the Pennsylvania Railroad, main line, Galleon, and from Galleon to Marion, we have the paired trackage with the Big Four, alias New York Central. So that goes through Martel and over to Marion. There's Marion, and the diamond crossings on both sides of the station. We have the yard, and then we have the two lines going off the Erie's branch to Dayton and the Big Four line to Cincinnati. We're continuing west. We have Lima. We have the Lima Locomotive Works. I actually have part of this thing. You won't see it on the demo today, but it's just too much. But test locomotives come out and test on the Erie in both directions, east and west from Lima. Okay, going over now toward Huntington, another division point, of course, Wabash Crossing at the east end of the station and the yard. And I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned before, just like you would see on a map, road map, a railroad map, most maps are oriented with west to the left, east to the right, north is up, south is down. That's obvious, but I just wanted to point that out. That is true of this railroad. We've been going west. We've been moving steadily to the left. It's just that it can't be all in one row, so you got to jump to the next set of lines up, which brings me to the final top set of lines up here that I'm going to navigate to. And I'm going to first point out Rochester, Indiana. And Rochester, Indiana is, I have some suburban trains, and what little suburban trains ran out of Chicago actually terminated, I believe, in North Judson, but I have them for my convenience terminating in Rochester. We gave them a little longer distance here. Okay, and then North Judson and so forth, and we get to Griffiths. Okay, Griffiths was significant where a lot of lines crossed the tower, but also the Chesapeake and Ohio trains on their own lines entered the Erie and ran on trackage rights to the Erie through the Hammond station and on into Chicago, where they eventually diverged to go to Grand Central Station, not Dearborn. So they run on my territory also, the C&O trains. We got Hammond Yard here and the interlockings at both ends. Across the Calumet River, and here's the Illinois-Indiana border. And I just made a note that obviously the Erie is operating on the Chicago and Western Indiana, of which it was part owner from the state line to downtown Chicago. So now I have my Little Englewood Station 63rd Street. I have the yard at 51st Street, the freight yards. It has an employee stop. And then I have a couple of things. I have an interchange track at 21st Street Tower. I have them crossing the Pennsy. Obviously, this junction was 20 times more complicated than what I could ever depict. And then I have Dearborn Station in Chicago and a couple other things, the 14th Street Freight House, and I have a connection to Grand Central that I use here. Okay, this concludes the little tour of the territory. Now we're going to see a brief operation starting at 5 a.m. Well, in order to do that, I am going to click here and I'm going to open this. Hopefully this will work. Okay, now in this operation, Jesus Christ. Hold on a minute, we'll get that back. In this operation, I have actually sorry, I wanted to make sure I got this number showing here. 16 trains that are already operating, but I'm going to let them operate. It says run. It's running at speed 20 now. I'm going to run it down to 8 so they don't run too fast. Now I'm going to go around and I'm going to see most of those 16 trains and get them routed to the right place. Okay, and I'm going to enlarge this. And I'm just going to start at the top. I'm going to go over here. Here is a train. This is train 4. And I wanted to hover over it for a minute and show you something. And this is going to be, you got to use your powers of scanning here. If you look up here, you're going to see right under this time, 5:10 a.m., you're going to see a blank space. And that window there, whenever you hover your pointer over a train, it's going to show the train number, it's going to show the exit that it's supposed to go to, and it's going to show the next area where it's supposed to work and the next area where it's supposed to stop. So a lot of information. So keep your eyes up here. Don't look where my pointer's going. I'm going to go hover over train 4. Okay, now if you look up here, you'll see it's train 4W, and it's going to the Kent Washer eventually. I'll explain that later. It stopped at the Griffiths platform currently. It's going to work Boulevard, and it's going to stop, well, Griffiths at 5:21. It's 5:18. All right, if you want to, you can look back down at the train now. You see that it's red, and it's 5:19. So at 5:21, this will change to blue and start moving. 5:20. Okay, 5:21, it changed to blue and it started moving. The next station stop is going to be Crown Point. Okay, and I don't have to do too much to route that because beforehand, before I started, I fleeted some of the signals. Let me show you what fleeting consists of. Up here, you see this signal. If I click it once, it clears. But if I click it once and then right click and click fleet, it puts a second, like a little gray lens above it there. That means it's fleeted. So every time a train goes by, that signal will go to red for 1 block and it will go back to green if I fleeted it. If I just leave it on a single green, it will go to red, it will not clear again, okay? Now, if I fleet it, I should have told you before too that the way I move switches is by clicking on the switch. So I'll show you what I mean. If I click on this switch, it goes to the diverging position. Everybody see that here? Normal, divergent. Now, if I have completed this switch, this signal, I mean, I can't throw this switch anymore. It's locked. The route is locked. Okay, so if I want to throw that switch, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to clear it like that. Now, one of the reasons I would want to clear it like that is there's a suburban train, I believe, at 5:45. Let's see what time it is. I'm going to click on the C4 here. I'm going to I'm going to right click on it, and a little box pops up. Let me bring that box up where you can see it. And it says, there's a train that's going to enter there at 5:45, and its destination is A1 Chicago. That's a commuter train. So since I know that, I'll clear it. Okay, that'll be able to run by itself now. Let's find some other trains. I'm going to go back to the left. You can scroll all you want in here. Here's a train. It's stopped because it's red. It's an Erie freight because it's black diesel. I'm going to hover over it. It says I'm going to D2. I'm going to route it to D2. Where is D2? Here's D2. In order to do that, I'll throw the switch. I'll clear the signal. It will go by itself because the program is running. There it goes. Okay, I see another train down here. I'm going to bring these up so where you can see them. See a train, it's in Dayton. Excuse me, it's in Marion. Where is it going? F4. This is a freight local we were talking about that goes into the Marion station and then reverses to go to Dayton branch. I'm going to clear it into the Marion station. Meantime, I see another train, 8. This is the Atlantic Express over here. It's waiting for the signal. Of course, it's going to be a mainline train straight eastbound. So I'm going to line it straight. It's going to go over to the Marion station. When it gets there, I can clear that freight to go onto the Dayton branch. But we'll wait till this train goes here. I'm going to line the first crossover, the second crossover, and the branch switch. Now my route is complete. I can now clear this signal. The train has reverse direction already. You see the diesel was pointed east to start. Now it's pointed west. Now I'll clear it. And sometimes it takes a minute or two to start moving, but it will move. We'll just wait to see that. Okay, it's going to go where it's supposed to go. Let us go down and find some other trains we got to get moving. Okay, here's one. This train is HOCL, Hornell to Cleveland, but it makes a stop at the Bessemer and Lake Erie interchange. You can see that by hovering over it. It'll say work Shenango relay in that hover box at the top under the time. So in order to work the Shenango relay, I first have to let it cross the Bessemer and Lake Erie. Here I am. And when it gets over here, I'm going to route it backwards into N3. Okay, it's clear. I can throw the switch and I can line the dwarf, hopefully, signal into there. It will change ends and go into here and drop off or pick up cars and come out by itself. So it's doing switching, but I don't keep track of the loose cars. Okay, going over here to Meadville, I see a train. I'm going to hover over it. It's train CX97. It exits at M2. And M2 is Youngstown. Well, I'm going to tell you about that in a second here. So in order to do that, it has to go to Pymatuning and then go into Youngstown. So I'm going to clear it through Meadville. Then I'm going to go over to Pymatuning. In order to do this, I'm going to clear it at Shenango. And then I'm going to line it at Pymatuning this way over here. Okay. Now, I am going to take a minute now to, let me see if I can, okay. I'm going to click stop if I can. All right, I'm going to take a minute to show you a navigation feature, and we'll get back to operating for a few minutes. All right, I'm going to go to Chicago. Now, I mentioned that one way of navigating before to get, this is a big territory. All of these are big territories. You can't see the whole thing on the screen. However, you can navigate by letter. So A is Chicago, all right? Now, I'm going to go A through Z very quickly here. So I mentioned a way of navigating before, which was put your pointer on the end and click, and it will bring you to wherever that line goes to. But going back to Chicago, a faster way of navigating long distances, if you know where you're going, which will also show you what the letters are used for, is using the alphabet keys on your keyboard. And so A is Chicago. So if I hit B, it brings me immediately to 51st Street, Yard, and Englewood. If I hit C, it brings me to Hammond and Rochester. Actually, Rochester's a little to the right. D brings me to Huntington, Indiana. E brings me to Lima and Ohio City. F brings me to Marion. We spent a few minutes there. G brings me to Galleon, the other end of the paired trackage, the junction with the big four on the east end. H brings me to Mansfield. There isn't any I. J brings me to both Cleveland and Akron. Cleveland is above it. Akron is below it. K brings me to Kent. While we're here, I'll show you the wash track. All through passenger trains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, go through the wash track and change numbers from E to W, just a point. L is Leavittsburg. M is Youngstown, but you can also see the bypass above it. So when you go to M, you'll see more than just, okay. N is Pymatuning, and the area around it, Transfer, Bruin, Shenango. O is Meadville. At P, you can see Columbus Junction and Niobe Junction. Q is Jamestown and Falconer. R is Salamanca and Carrollton. S is Cuba Junction. T is Hornell. U is Corning and Elmira. V is Waverly. These letters, by the way, do not represent the word, like V. Waverly doesn't start with a V. Kent does, but that's just an accident. I'd rather do them geographically in order and alphabetically in order. And, W is Owego. X is Binghamton. Y is Susquehanna. Z is Deposit. We ran out of letters. I used 8 for Lackawaxen and 9 for Port Jervis to fill the gap. So what happened to 1, 2, 3? Okay. 1 is on the Buffalo and Southwestern Division. It is Gowanda. 2 is Hamburg. 3 is Buffalo. Here's the Lehigh Valley Station passenger. Then I got Niagara Falls, of course, and Lockport. 4 is East Buffalo. 5 is Attica, and you can find your own. I have 6 as being Rochester and Avon. There's a little bit of the Rochester division on this. It's the junction in Corning at one end, and then it skips over to up here to Livonia and Geneseo on the Mount Morris branch. So it's got a lot of stuff, as much as will fit. All right, getting back to our operation, we'll start our operation again. And we'll do a few more minutes before we do questions. I'm going to go to Youngstown, which you might remember was M. I'm going to hit the M key. And I have actually the Cleveland commuter train here, 629. And this has to get going. So I will line the switch to line it out of the third track in Youngstown. I'll clear it. And while I'm at it, I'll line it all the way to Cleveland. So I'll go over here. Now at Leavittsburg, I'll line it 3 switches I have to throw. I'm going to clear the signal. And now it's going up here through all the local stations and over and into the Cleveland passenger station lead. Okay, what other trains are running here? I'll show you a way to find out now. We can travel around the territory, or we can use the drop-down list. If you see in the upper left-hand corner, it says trains. If you click on that, a dialog box opens up. Everyone that says stop waiting signal, I'll enlarge that a little. Everyone that says stop waiting signal is waiting for your attention. But you can go directly to them. We're going to click on 35, find train. Brings you to it immediately. Here's the train. 35, that's obviously going to, 35 is the Buffalo section of train 5, connection at Hornell. I'm going to clear that kind of north to, they call it westbound, toward the Buffalo station. While I'm at it, and before I let that run, I noticed that the suspension bridge freight is ready to leave East Buffalo Yard. So I'm going to clear that first. And clear that and let it go up the Niagara Falls branch. It's going to go up there. Show you where I am. I'm at International Junction. And I'm going to clear it all the way to Suspension Bridge. Right there. This is Suspension Bridge. This is Lockport. Okay, now that I've done that, I can go back to East Buffalo and I can clear my passenger train into the passenger station, Lehigh Valley. We have sort of right-hand running, so the terminating trains go in 32 and the originating come out at 33. Okay, let's find another train by the drop-down method. 202, that's an interesting train. 202 originates in Susquehanna, and it runs to Carbondale or Scranton on the Erie's Jefferson division. So in order to go there, we're going to line it out of Susquehanna down to J.A. Lanesboro Tower and then down the Jefferson division. So we'll line it all the way and clear it. It will move. Meantime, I noticed 2 trains down here. I noticed in Port Jervis, a freight coming out. I'm going to run the freight first. I'm going to cheat a little and get it going, and then I'll see where it's going. Oh, it's going to 81. This is a Wyoming division freight to Scranton. So it runs on the Delaware division to BQ, Lackawanna, and then to Scranton. So I'm going to go over to Lackawanna. And first we'll get train 6. Oh my goodness. The Lake Cities. We'll get that going to Port Jervis. Clear it all the way. And then we can clear, this is 3. This is my Mail and Express westbound all the way to Chicago. We'll let that go behind the freight. Now we're going to clear the Port Jervis to Scranton via the Wyoming division into there. Now, meantime, as I navigate over here, I have another train, Port Jervis to Susquehanna freight, was switching Narrowsburg. He's going to come out and he's going to go all the way to Susquehanna. I'll line him out. I'm going to pick up my speed a little if I can here. No, I can't really. Once he's out of there, he's the only train that works there. I'll fleet that signal so it can keep going. And then I'm going to do one other trick. This is the advanced class. You want PJSC to go to Scranton, but you want all the other trains, such as 3, to go straight at Lackawanna. You can actually stack another move by clicking on the signal and then clicking the next signal in the opposite direction. It will get that going. Okay, let's, that's in the advanced course. Okay, see if we have another stop waiting signal. Okay, train 4. We'll find the train. Here it is in Huntington. He's going to go straight ahead, so we'll clear it. Let's find another train. 5E. Well, 5E. Here he is. Okay, he just came off that single track main line at Cuba Junction. He's going to go west on the double track main line, so we'll clear him. Let's find another train. They need to say stop waiting signal. Okay. OHCI, that's interesting. OHCI, you can see from the diesel paint scheme, this is a New York Central train. This is the Big 4 train going to Cincinnati. So he's going to go on the paired trackage to Marion. So we'll line him west on the paired trackage to Marion. When he gets to Marion, he's going to cross over and go to Cincinnati on the Big 4 main line out of there where it splits again. So I'm going to scroll over to Marion. And while we're talking here, I'll route him. So he's going to go like this. You notice after you clear these, you route the switches, then you clear the signal, and it will show you where it's cleared to. So you can make sure that you have the route that you want. So that's pretty good. Meantime, I notice up here, my Rochester commuter train is kind of stuck. He made his Englewood Station stop. He's ready to go on to Dearborn Station. So we'll clear him. I'm going to clear him into Chicago, Dearborn Station. All right, let's do about 2 or 3 more, and then we'll stop for questions. All right, let's do BUCX. BUCX, and I noticed 7E. Let's let 7E, that's 7 is the Pacific Express. We'll let him keep going west. BUCX is going to work Elmira Yard from the west end from VO McCann Boulevard Tower. So he's going to line in that way. Okay. We got 2 for the price of 1 here. All right, CX97. CX, whoops, we didn't quite get there. Do it again. All right, I know where he is and I know why that happened, but it's not important. CX97, we were routing to Briar Hill Yard in Cleveland. Here he is over here. I'm going to clear him into the passenger station, and then I'm going to line him into the east end of Briar Hill Yard where he's supposed to go. All right, let's pick one more train here, maybe 2 more. Okay, how about LOC? LOC is the Lockport Buffalo morning train, like a commuter train. Okay, so we're going to clear him down to all the way to Buffalo. So when he gets to IQ Tower Y here at East Buffalo, he's going to clear, and then Seneca Street, he's going to go into the Lehigh Valley, and so forth. Meantime, and lastly, HOCL, that train that worked at Bessemer and Lake Erie interchange, is going to come out. He's going to go, since he's going to Cleveland, he doesn't work Youngstown, so he's going to go via the bypass. So we're going to line him at Pymatooning straight west on the Youngstown bypass, sometimes called the second subdivision. And then, of course, I want to see the rest of the bypass. So I'm over here. I'm going to just click the end of it. It'll bring me to the other end. So he won't use the passing sidings at North Warren. He'll cross the B&O, Leavittsburg siding. And when he gets here, we'll route him up to Cleveland. And absolute last, KEMA is going to work the Mansfield yard. So we're going to line him crossing over and into the Mansfield yard. Okay, now I am going to stop this demo. I'm going to leave it up on the board, and let's go to the questions and answers, see if there's anything in the chat area that I can look at. All right.
There's one question here, Jeff, from
Yes.
Rich Wisniewski. Since train dispatcher is old, quote unquote, last supported in 2012, have there been any issues as Windows has been upgraded in the intervening 9 years?
Right. Okay. I thought the same thing, Rich and everybody. When I was on Windows 7, it was working fine up until about 2 years ago. It was working fine, and I didn't want to upgrade to Windows 10. But I started having problems with my computer, so I said, well, I'll get a Windows 10 computer and I'll try it. And since then, I think I've successfully loaded it on 2 Windows 10 machines. It works fine. There were no issues. So by some lucky turn of events, Windows 10 supports it. And I don't know of any newer. I guess there's what do you call it? Packs, service packs put on Windows 10. I don't know of any problems. I guess we can't guarantee it will work forever, but the underlying software only costs $20, so that the risk is very low. I hope it'll work. I have kept my Windows 7 machine also. Okay, any other questions? We'll take them now. I, for some reason, can't see the chat window, but
That was the only one in the chat window.
okay.
But people can unmute themselves and start asking away now.
Yeah, please unmute yourself and ask away. All right, I'm going to run a couple other trains while we're waiting here. Big 4 going to Columbus. This doesn't run on the shared trackage. It crosses over at Galley and goes directly to Columbus.
There's a couple more questions in the chat, Paul, if you want to read them.
Yes. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, this is Rich. I'll step in. One of them was my question, actually. Jeff,
Yes.
how did you come up with the train symbols and the times that they appear in your simulation? What did you use as your data source?
Well, I would say it's loosely adapted from Erie practice. And really the freights, the passenger trains are fairly real. You know, obviously there was a train 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 and so forth. The freights are more loosely adopted in order to, I use symbols that they used at one time, but I picked one, you know, the number of stops that I wanted that would kind of work out. I don't know if that answers your question. It's loosely adopted.
Yeah, okay. Here's a question from Larry Kirstein.
Oh, and can I also say, I'm sorry, like for the passenger trains, which is a big emphasis, all of the, for example, the Hornell Buffalo were in the 30 series, so that's realistic. You know, the trains that went, for example, from Susquehanna to Carbondale and so forth, they were 200 series and so forth.
Sure. Okay. So I have a couple of other questions that have come in, and maybe you can actually demonstrate some of these. I'm not sure. What happens if you try to clear a signal when a switch is improperly aligned? Is there a warning? Is there a message? Is there an audio?
That's a very good question, and I can demonstrate it easily, I think. All right. All right. Let me see if I've got this going. I'm going to direct your attention to Rochester, Indiana up here, okay? Now, if can I do this? No. All right. Just a sec. I'm going to fix one thing and then. Oh, I know what happened. All right. I'm going to pick a different location because that won't work very well. All right. I'm going to direct your attention to Griffiths, Indiana over here. Okay. And I'm going to direct your attention to this switch, I guess. Okay. Now, if I click to clear this signal, i.e. eastbound, right? It'll clear. And it'll clear over the straight route, the normal route. Now, if I had had the switch line, the diverging route onto the C&O, and I clicked it, it would still clear because that's a legitimate route, right? Now, so in the facing point direction, it'll always clear. Now, in the trailing point direction, it will only clear in the direction for which the switch is lined. So in other words, if I try to clear this now for a westbound move on the eastbound main, it'll work because the switch is lined that way. If I try to clear it out of the connection, it won't work. And what happens is the switch flashes. So that helps you know why it didn't work. So let's say you really want to make a move out of here and you're clicking this signal like crazy and you say, I want to come out of there. Well, I can't. Why not? Oh, so it will show you. If you throw that, it'll work. Okay. So it depends on which direction you're trying to go over the switch, facing point or trailing point.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Another request. What happens, can you demonstrate where a train might be crossing, say at a diamond somewhere?
Yes. There's zillions of them. So let me find, let me see if we can find a train that's convenient to that process. Just to show you the diamonds. Okay, you can tell what's a diamond versus an overhead bridge because the diamonds actually show on the diagram. If this were an overhead bridge, and I don't really have them on this territory, if this were an overhead bridge, you would see a little gap and the lower track would stop and it would kind of jump over to the other side. But these are diamonds. So these are like 45-degree diamonds here, right? Then I have plenty of 90-degree diamonds like up here. Like, for example, just to show them here, these would be 90-degree diamonds up here in Marion. Okay, so they all show. These are not jump overs. I don't think I have any jump overs on this territory. This one, these were at J.O. Tower and just east of the Akron passenger station, just for, okay. Now, let's see if there's any trains at all convenient. I can get one here if it'll get going. All right, so this is train 2. And his next station stop is going to be Greenville. So he should get going here because Greenville's way over here. All right. So the first diamond he comes to here is the Pennsylvania Railroad, Erie to Pittsburgh line. And he's going to cross it at Bruin Tower, right? So I just lined him to cross it here. The next one is XN Shenango, where he crosses the Bessemer in Lake Erie.
But I guess, Jeff, the question was, does the simulation include traffic crossing on those diamonds that would affect your ability to use the straight route that you're just demonstrating?
And the answer is yes to that. Let me see something here. For example, yes, many of them. This one, for example, has a Pennsylvania Railroad train entering at 9 o'clock at the top here, coming from Erie. Erie's kind of ambiguous here, but from the city of Erie going to Pittsburgh, he enters at 9 o'clock. And so he'll show up here, and then I'll have to clear him like this, and then he'll go across. And there's several at JO in Akron, and there's several at RU Sterling, just west of Richmond here, which most people know about that location. So I guess the answer is a yes in several cases. And by the way, I just demonstrated, remember Galleon a minute ago? We just had a New York Central Big 4 train go across these diamonds about 5 minutes ago. Okay, do we have some more questions? I hope.
As of now, those are the only ones on the chat. I have one more myself, and then we'll see if anybody else wants to chime in.
Good.
So what is the, this, you said this simulation started at 5 a.m.
Yes.
How far does it go? And do you just sort of get involved for some period of time and then pause it and then come back the next day? Or how do you
personally, I sometimes do that, yes. Or sometimes I just start. I have these simulations. Most of the time, if they're, well, let me put it a different way. Basically, for example, the Erie West and, for example, the Lackawanna West, they run 24 hours a day. There are trains because freights and passenger run all night. And so you can start and stop at different times. There are some starting times that you pick. And when the starting, like for instance, the 5 a.m. starting time, there are 13 trains already on the territory, so you won't be bored. And then 3 more actually enter at 5, so there'll be 16 at that point. So they're sort of like built in. Now, some of the suburban territories, like the Erie, New York division, that's basically a daytime thing. So I think it's operates from kind of like 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. or something like that. You can operate it. And there isn't much going on between 1 and 5. So it more or less ends at 1 a.m. So I got like both varieties of those things. And I do both. Actually, I spend a lot of time designing new territories as well. I do operate the old ones, every so often and keep up with them and sometimes make minor improvements. So they are mostly 24 hours territories that I have, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up. Is there anybody else who has a question they'd like to ask? Speak up now.
Hi, Jeff. Logan Geigner here in Central Illinois.
Hi.
You had to, thanks for going through this, by the way. It's really interesting. My question is, you had to input all of this information into the simulator. Is that like the tracks, the names, the schedule, the trains themselves? You had to input all of that information in like manually, correct?
I guess you would say yes to that, but it's fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I'm thinking to myself, like I have some old official railway guide, and that would be a great resource, I would think, to sort of create, especially the passenger trains, especially because you could have the actual, scheduled times and numbers and all that stuff. But you would have to know, for me, I would have to know which sections were actually single track, like where all the branches came off. Like you would have to know that. It's not inherently built in. You have to like design all of it. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Nothing, you get a Let me explain this a little bit. We're talking about Train Dispatcher 3.5. And what I'm saying is anyone that would like these 5 territories, these will operate on your computer under Train Dispatcher 3.5. That you have to buy from somebody, but it's a flat $20 one time forever. Very reasonable cost, and downloads itself onto your computer. Now, and if you email me, you'll get an instruction sheet that tells how all that works, you know. Now, there's a companion program called Track Builder. I don't recommend that people buy Track Builder until you've operated these territories yourself and you see if you like it or not. Track Builder is a little more of a computer programming type of program, you know. So if you wanted to design your own territories, you would have to get this companion program called Track Builder, which is the one that I use to make these. In other words, I make these in Track Builder, and then I compile them by clicking something in Track Builder, and it makes it everything that you can run in Train Dispatcher program. So it's sort of like a 2-step process. Now, having said that, I have to tell you that you all in these territories can add and delete trains if you want. You can't change the design. Like if you get this from me, for example, and you want to delete some trains and add some other ones, you can. I want to see something here.
I just want to jump in and make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
On what Logan was asking. He makes a good point. If you're designing something in Track Builder, you do need to have, if you're trying to replicate a prototype, a source of original track diagrams to kind of copy off of. The society does sell track diagrams for, I think, most of the divisions. I wish Jay Held was on here. He could plug it in.
Paul, what it is we also have a complete set of val maps on CDs.
Right. So we have those resources if you do want to try to replicate a portion of the area of the DLW or EL to coincide with your official guide or what have you. But we do have the resources that will show you how the tracks look so you can kind of try to duplicate that.
Okay. One other thing I want to tell you, Logan, is this. These schedules are realistic that I have on here, but in the following way. I took one of the through trains, like let's say it was train 1, you know, from Jersey City to Chicago. And I took the times of it. I don't know if that was the one, but one of the westbound trains, okay? And one of the trains is basically exactly on the time of that. Then the other 2, I made by, they have a device in here where you can have a timetable template, and they can have the same interval. So if the first train takes 20 minutes to get to the first station and 15 to get to the next one, you can make the other ones do the same thing. And it saves a tremendous amount of time to do that. So if you want to call it, cheated a little bit by using one absolutely realistic, and then the other ones were imitating that, even though they might be 5 or 10 minutes off. So there's a template tool in Track Builder that lets you set up the intervals, and then you can have, and it's especially good like on the New York division where you imagine you had a train, go from Jersey City to Suffern, and you wanted to run 10 trains that day. Well, you don't want to type all the times in at each station. You want to type one time in, and then you want to have a starting time, and then you duplicate them for all the other trains. So you make the intervals the same. You kind of force them to be the same for simplicity. So it is based on a timetable. The other thing that you should know is, and a justification for the way that I've done it, I'm talking about a 20 or 30 year time span. And the thing didn't stay constant in that time. They were changing all the time. They were adding trains and deleting trains and retiming them. So what I have on here represents sort of a blended thing, you know. Other than that, I've simplified by having a double track all the way, because I wanted to have the trains be able to run and not have lots of, obviously there were some places where there was a little more single track where you needed dispatcher intervention. But I let the main lines be double track so that the other divisions, like the Buffalo division, the Buffalo and Southwestern and Rochester for that matter, were single track. So I did have to pass some trains. And on the old main line in like Wellsville, I had, you know, so there's a mix of double and single track. Some trains run and you get some mileage out of them, and some trains you pick a passing place depending on whether they're on time or whether one is late or early, whatever.
Your
So Jeff,
simulation definitely, oh, excuse me, I just wanted to add real quick, piggyback on top of that,
Go ahead.
is how showing this demonstration definitely demonstrates why dispatchers had divisions and sections
Oh, yeah.
instead of trying to do the whole thing all at once. So, I mean, if anything, your demonstration really showed why, you know, you needed a team of dispatchers. So this has been really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you do need a team in real life. You can't click them that fast in real life. You got to worry about other things. By the way, there are even other realistic things. I was going to say, you can, as a user, you can modify your trains actually by, as I said, by clicking here on train, and then you can have properties. Whoops, I'm sorry. You can have properties, and then you can change some of the times and so forth. And if you do that, it will let you save it. So there is some user modification that you can do even within Train Dispatcher 3.5. So you don't have to buy Track Builder to modify the trains. You do have to buy it to modify the layout of the territory.
All right, Jeff, we have a couple of questions here in the chat, so let me try and
Good.
run them past you. Any plans to do post-merger as in EL? And as you mentioned, of course, the user would have the ability to set up their own train schedules using your territory, but there's probably more territory here than there was during the EL era, I would think.
Yeah. No, I've done, I probably would not do a current day territory, or even I shouldn't say that. I probably wouldn't do an EL territory. I'm kind of more interested in the era before that. And of course, if I were trying to do the whole thing, it would be even more massive, I guess. But no, I guess I would leave the EL territories to others that would, you know, get some ideas from this, hopefully.
Sure. Okay, here's the next one. How long did it take you to create this simulation that we're seeing today? Like, in how many
hours?
Days, weeks, months? You know, how long did you work on this before you got it to the point where you were happy with it?
Mm-hmm. I would say, you know, 3 or 4 weeks off and on, you know, an hour or two a day, a couple hours a day. And yeah, 3 or 4 weeks.
Sure. Okay. Now, somebody asked about reverse running. It looks to me like.
Excuse me. Can I also add one thing that I should have said to Logan and relates directly to this? There are 2 primary sources of information that I used, which are not exactly the Erie Lackawanna val maps or anything. One is that I think his name is Walker, and he has all of those maps of you know, the railroads in the United States. The British guy that has them.
Steam-powered.
Yeah, steam-powered. Yeah. And so I used all of those books, you know, like the Northeast book and the Great Lakes East and that, and they show not only all of the Erie trackage, but they show all the junctions with the other railroads and things like that, and blow-ups of cities. The second thing that I used was Richard Carpenter. You know those green books, those big thick books, an atlas of the United States railroads in 1946? And he has a 5-volume set of them now, and they're green books. And
Jeff, I want to mention something about the steam-powered videos,
yes, yes.
US Atlas. I just saw an email the other week that the company that publishes them, apparently Mike Walker, I'm not sure he passed away or if he's just not maintaining them anymore, but they're going to be discontinuing them once they're sold out. So if you want them,
Right,
get them
right.
now.
Right, exactly. So the other thing is Richard Carpenter, Carpenter, and he has 5 books out and a beautiful job on the railroads as they were in 1946, which is just my speed. And it shows them in larger detail than what the steam-powered book does. And so I strongly recommend those books that show everything. The other thing is you can look at historic topological maps on the internet from the Library of Congress or whatever. And sometimes you can get views of cities. And like, I always wanted to know things like, did the New York Central cross the Erie east of the Erie passenger station or west of the Erie passenger station or something? Or was the yard on the north side of the tracks or the south side? And so I could, some of that information, well, I could get that all from Walker or from Carpenter's books, but I also could go to the historic topographic maps, and they have been a big help. So this is as authentic as I could fit and as authentic as the information that I could get from those kind of sources.
Thanks, Jeff. A couple more questions. For we'll call it reverse running. Does the
Yes.
double track, is it assumed that it's 261 territory, or is that a choice?
It's a choice that you make. The signals work in the opposite direction. For instance, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to try to go east on the westbound main. Here I'm in Akron, and I'm going to go into Kent and right through, and I'm going to go, might as well go up to Braceville and go the wrong way to Cleveland while I'm at it, right? Here and here. So what I would say is this: it's somewhere in between those. You can operate, and the track is signaled in the opposite direction. However, you cannot fleet any signals in that direction. So you would be forced to make clear one train at a time, which is sort of like saying you gave them an order to go to operate in the reverse direction.
Thanks.
I would say I normally don't do that in operation, but every once in a while, some train gets stuck or something. We also have a thing in here. There are some tracks out of service for maintenance. So like sometimes the track goes out of service for a couple hours for maintenance. And that typically happens on a double track main line only for one of the tracks. So in that case, you would have reverse running. You would make your own reverse running by the method I just showed you to get around that during that couple hours.
Okay, thank you. Paul, this might be a question you'll need to follow up if you don't know, or if nobody else on the call knows, but Mr. Smith is asking if the Rochester division of the Erie, which of the CDs of Val maps is the Rochester division on? Is it the Susquehanna CD or the Buffalo CD? Does anybody know that?
I don't know.
I just got all of the sets. I believe it would be on the Buffalo because it was for many years after it stopped being an independent division. It was the Buffalo and Rochester division.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I think we have two more here. Is it possible, Jeff, to overload the capacity of the lines to use essentially to help find where you might need to make improvements to a territory? Because obviously this system, right, this train dispatcher program was originally developed as a training program for actual train dispatchers, and it kind of morphed into its own thing for enthusiasts.
Yes. Well, I don't know. I guess I would say once in a while I put too many trains on a territory and I revise them, like by either deleting one or changing. Like if there was too many freights, once in a while I would make one Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the other one Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday to thin it out a little bit. But there isn't any, and I think there may be a hard limit in this thing that you can't define more than 1,000 trains. But I don't see why anybody would want to, per territory, I don't see why anybody would want to exceed that anyway. I have a couple hundred defined in some of the territories. There are 150 anyway. Then they definitely do not all run at once. And some of them only run for like 5 minutes, because consider like that in Akron, you know, if a B&O train crosses over, it's only going to be seen for a minute or two while you cross it over. But so mine don't get overloaded. You might be able to overload it to the point where it wasn't any fun to operate anymore because no train could move. But you know, especially on a single track line. But that wouldn't be any fun. So I would say I design them and test them to be just under what would be too much.
Great. Okay.
Busy, but not frantic.
So there's several complimentary thanks and congratulations for this great presentation, including one here from Larry. Fabulous presentation, fascinating simulation. Thanks from a retired Chicago Northwestern Katy UP train dispatcher / manager. So
great. Well, thank you.
I think this was a success. So Jeff, I'd like to say thank you for your time, obviously, that you put into this, but also for the time you took to walk everybody through this. And
I just want to flash my email on the screen one more time here, in case anybody wants to write it down from the screen. There it is. Okay, well, I look forward to hearing from any of you that would like to communicate, and thank you.
Good.
Yeah, very well done, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jeff.